So thank you all for joining us today. Today I'm joined by our managing editor, Alex Shaw. Hi, Alex, and thanks for your time.
Good morning, everybody.
So today we are very excited to present the Masterspec SCNZ structural steel library. This is a culmination of an industry partnership between Masterspec and SCNZ. Now, the main goal of this partnership is to support the industry, the structural steel design industry, share information for the industry growth, to promote best practices, and to provide resources for the industry to create construction, specification, and quality projects. So the purpose of the Masterspec library is that it's a very specialized library. It's got a specialized application. It is adopted from the SCNZ specification, which was created and peer reviewed by the structural steel industry, which comprised of engineers, contractors, and steel suppliers. It is in accordance with ASNZ 5131. So that ASNZ 5131 forms the guiding principle of this specification. And it also aims to provide guidance for structural steel contractors, erectors, fabricators, and all other stakeholders involved in structural steel design. It is an industry resource. So as we talked earlier, adding resources to the industry is one of the main goals of this partnership. So this library will be provided to existing Masterspec structural and civil subscribers and SCNZ members at no additional cost. It is also implemented to introduce best practice methods for design specification. It is aimed at improving user efficiency. Masterspec is an innovative platform which reduces editing, over editing, and too much work. You're working on an online platform. Through regular updates of the work sections and the specification, the aim is to manage your risk. And it also allows for increased collaboration between different design disciplines. So whether you're an engineer working with an architect or other engineers collaborating on a project, you can do that through the Masterspec platform. So as with other Masterspec libraries, this particular library will carry all your favorite Masterspec features. So it will be pre-formatted to reduce your editing and to reduce your turnaround time. It will be accessible from a secured cloud platform. So it is accessible from anywhere, everywhere, at any time. It is completely customizable, so you can still curate it to your project brief and your project requirement. It is collaborative, so you can collaborate with other teams and other practices. And it will also be supported by our support desk and also by SCNZ. So now from here, I'll pass it over to Alex, who will talk a bit about the Masterspec SCNZ system library structure. Over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Yash. Now, let's have a look at this. The Masterspec SCNZ system sits on the Masterspec Gen 2 platform alongside Masterspec Structural and Civil, 22 sections versus hundreds of sections, 26 sections, sorry. It consists of 6 SCNZ sections. There's the 6 SCNZ sections grouped under CBI 3, where all the structural sections are, 3, 4 being the steel sections. There is also, as you see at the top there, some CBI 1 general sections, and below the SCNZ sections will be the CBI 6 finishes sections. These are all meant to support the SCNZ, the general sections. Some of those are referenced in the SCNZ section, so hence you need those to support it. And also, if you wanted to create a standalone structural steel spec, you would need the general sections to support that as well. The coating sections, they are all referenced in the the SCNZ section, so they have to be there also to support.
So what we've done here, guys, is that in order to replicate the SCNZ specification onto Masterspec platform, we have provided all these supporting sections. So whether or not you are a Masterspec user or you're just an SCNZ member, you are still able to create a standalone specification, including all the general documentation, drawings, project management, construction. All these details can also be included along with the finishes part, which includes paintings, protective coatings, fire rated, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you can build a large complex specification on Masterspec Gen 2 by moving between SCNZ system and the structural and civil system. So you can pick up the SCNZ sections from the SCNZ system and then transfer over to the structural and civil side to get a lot more choice on other sections. One thing to note, however, is that the SCNZ sections should not be used or mixed with the equivalent Masterspec non-SCNZ structural C sections, steel sections, except for purlins and girts, which are branded sections within the structural and civil system.
That's right, Alex.
So be careful when you do that, as the SCNZ sections refer to the other SCNZ sections. The ones on the non-SCNZ sections do not refer to any of the SCNZ sections. So
that's right.
Be careful with mixing.
That's right. So what we now can do is jump into the actual tool set and have a look at the library. So as this current webinar is for our Masterspec subscribers, so if you are an existing Masterspec structural and civil subscriber, this library is already activated for you. So if you log into your account today, you will see Masterspec SCNZ structural active, and after this webinar, you will also be able to build a specification using this library. So just to reiterate, as Alex mentioned before, as an existing Masterspec structural and civil subscriber, you can take the best of both these libraries and you can build a specification. What that also means is that you can build Office Masters, which will save your time by creating a template to suit your different projects, and it will be efficient and accurate. It will also allow you to maintain your workflow, and it will be updated by us regularly to keep the sections up to date. But now the good part is that you can include a SCNZ section into your Office Masters. So if you are looking to build your structural steel framing specification using the SCNZ section, but if you want to include other sections from the structural and civil library, you can bring these two together and you can build an Office Master and a specification from there. Now, moving on to the tool set. And before I do that, guys, I just want to let you know that when anybody has a question or a comment, please use our Q&A tool or the chat tool. And Jeremy is available to support you through that channel as well. And as usual, we will also be taking all your questions at the end of the presentation. So let's move on to the tool set. Now, most of you, or almost every one of you, will be familiar with the NG2 platform. As we are looking at, this is your usual Masterspec NG2 platform. And as you can see here, the SCNZ structural library is activated, and same should be for you as well. So Alex, do you just want to talk through the part 3 or the CBI 3?
The new thing to most users of Masterspec in this area will be that we've got the standard 3411, 3415, and 3419, which is the ones you will see in structural civil. However, in the SCNZ, they have the suffix S after them, to donate their SCNZ. But what's new to users in this area will be that there are 3, 4, 11, S1, S2, and S3, which are schedule sections. They, S1 and S2 automatically download with 3411S, and S3 automatically downloads with 3419S. Yash, you'll be demonstrating that, I assume?
Yes, so we can start with running the 3411. And in terms of the selection philosophy for 3411, Alex, would you like to talk a bit about how do we start with the construction category?
Okay, now 3411 is your standard steelwork section. It's for specifying fabrication, transportation, erection, based on SNZS 5131. And as a side note, we do cover off Amendment 1 to 51331, which isn't cited in the building code. We cover that off by mentioning it in guidance notes and saying what the differences are. It largely revolves around traceability and things like that. So, but there are a few other items which are covered off in the guidance notes. The Q&A for 3411 mainly deals in the first instance deal with your construction category, which by selecting whether you're CC1, CC2, CC3, or CC4, or a combination of those, choose whichever ones apply. CC1 gives you the minimum requirements. CC2 adds things like quality documents, traceability, supervision for fabrication, fasteners, and erection, and it gives you the option of quality plan. Quality plan under 5131 is an option for CC2, and then of course CC3 and CC4 just get everything, including the quality plan. From there, we progress to whether the project has AESS, architecturally exposed structural steel. And the thing with AESS, if there's a small amount of it, it can be specified within this section. However, if there's a large amount or complex requirements, we suggest you use the specialized section 3415S. And there your options are, the structural engineer can fill out the 3415S, or the designer architect could, and then give it back to the engineer. It's there are options there, or a combination of the two, if you like. And then it finally finishes up with what the finishes are, cleaning and prep work. And you carry on from there. Most of the finishes are covered in other sections in more detail.
So I've just run a demo or a Q&A, selecting CC2, CC3, and CC4, and we're just looking at a broad summary of what we have selected. And just as with our other libraries, it will give you a summary. So if you're not happy with it, you can go back and change your selection. But if you are happy, we click Add to Document, and that's where it triggers the automatic download of the schedule sections. And Alex, over to you.
Okay, now 3411 S1 schedule of submittals, which is brought in, is the contractor submittals required under 5131, and this gives the option of either SFC or non-SFC contractors, so whether they're certified or not. And you make your choices there. It depends on your contractual arrangements. it links the submittal items to the the various spec sections, timeframes, and stages, being hold, notify, or review. A note here is that within Masterspec, we use the term notify, which is the same, basically similar to the term witness. We use a notify because the only thing that's mandatory in there is the fact that the contractor notifies, whereas from a witness point of view, under the Masterspec definition, witness is an option of the reviewer as to whether they need to witness or not. So from a Q&A point of view,
yeah.
Do you want to show the rerun?
Yes. So as Alex mentioned before, currently with a little bit of a technological handicap, the schedules are downloading as is, which means they are downloading completely without taking into consideration the selection that you made for 3411S. So if you remember, we selected CC2 and CC3/4. However, for the schedule, it did not take that selection into consideration. So what is required, and as it says here in the guidance note, is that the Q&A must be rerun. So to rerun the Q&A, you just need to be in the edit mode, and then you click on the rerun the Q&A for this work section. And as you can see, it shows here that no options were selected. So we just go and do a full replacement. And then based on whether or not you have to select a steel fabrication certificate options or not, you just select the option. So we select, in this case, that we have, the steel SFC certification options, and that we also have architecturally exposed structural steel. And then, because we selected that, it talks about whether or not the contractors are steel fabricator certified or not certified. So it is completely up to you as to what you want on the project. So in this case, I'm just going to select that they may be SFC or non-SFC contractors. Then when I click next, it just gives me a summary again, and then I add it to the document. So now it has updated that section. Same thing goes for 3411S2, which is the schedule of independent inspection. And again, it is the same procedure as before, where you need to go in and rerun the Q&A. So again, no options. So I do full replacement. And again, it says SFC only to be used. But as we have said that we could be SFC or non-SFC, we just go next. And then here, you say what construction categories you have. And then you again go ahead and under CC2, you select the options that were selected as per your 3411S, the main section, and then we add it to the document. So what happens here is that, and Alex, if you want to take over, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, just a thing to note with the S2 is if the project has only SFC certified contractors and there are no non-SFC contractors, then you can delete the section.
Yeah. So other than that, once you have selected the correct category, what will happen is that it is going to bring about the tables. And as Alex said, that if it has SFC, it will also show the requirements and for inspections for different construction categories with different tables. As with all other master spec sections, you can edit and you can curate this section as you see fit for your project. So you can use all those editing tools. It's the same concept where you just click on wherever you need, and then you can make the edits. So now moving on to the next one. So I've already preloaded in the specification, I've already loaded architecturally exposed structural steel. And again, architecturally exposed structural steel, we had said that it is in a separate section. So Alex, is there any difference between this one and the one that we have in Masterspec in the?
Essentially not. It's largely the same section with some minor changes. It does not change the intent or to any extent the content of the section. So it will be very familiar.
Okay, all right, then moving on to structural steel quality control. And I'll just quickly run the Q&A on this one. And Alex, do you want to just talk through this? Any particular things to note for this section?
I suppose the difference between the one on Masterspec, structural and civil, this one groups together more of the quality control requirements in this one section. In the structural and civil system, it tended to group the more stringent ones in quality control, so that depending on level, it could be left out. With SCNZ, virtually all of the quality control systems are accumulated in this section. They are mentioned in the standard 3411S section, but they are certainly dealt with in more detail and in the quality control section. So there's a slight difference in philosophy there, which is it's not wrong. It gives you a different approach and is equally as valid.
Excellent. Alex, do you just want to touch upon the manufacturer's data report schedule, which is going to be automated?
Yeah. Now, this 3419S automatically downloads the section, the S3 section, 3411S3, the manufacturer's data report, MDR for short, which is the contractor submissions of MDR for CC1 to CC4. This is not mandatory in AS/NZS 5131. It is, however, recommended by SCNZ for anything other than the simplest or small projects. It's a sort of kind of call that the engineer has to make. It doesn't differentiate. It doesn't have a situation where, for argument's sake, in a lot of areas you don't do things for CC1. It does have CC1 in it. It tends to we provide the same list for each construction category. It just says when they're applied and when they're not. So you can customize these to suit your project, but we always give the same base to work from.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Alex. So, and as before, while Alex was talking about the MDR, I have rerun the Q&A just to align it with our overall specification so that relevant information is brought in. So there you have it.
Just one thing, Ash, if you don't want to use the MDR section, then you would have to physically delete it.
Yeah. So anything that is not required on the project, you need to physically delete it. But all in all, this still allows you to build a great specification, which is curated, and it takes very little time to put it together because it's all pre-edited and all the information is in there. As with other master spec sections, you would also have links to various codes and standards if you need to refer it. So there you have it, guys. A SCNZ library for structural steel frame buildings. As I said, it's already live, and for all our existing structural and civil subscribers, it is available to you to use from now on, and there is no additional cost. If you are not a structural and civil subscriber, but you've joined us today, but you would like to take advantage of this value-added service, along with our extended structural and civil library, which has over 650 sections, get in touch with us and we can assist you to get that activated for you. So if we are ready to take your questions now, so if there are any questions, then please send them along the Q&A channel. So I see that we have a question here, Alex, that says that, is there a way to see these new sections next to the existing sections to see how it has changed?
Probably, and the rest of the team can correct me if I'm wrong here. You could create two dummy projects and download all the SCNZ sections into one and all the equivalent master spec into the others, and then just compare them on the screen or download them into a PDF or something like that, and then you could compare them from there.
Excellent. So there is another question which has come through, and it says that, what can architects see in Masterspec? Specifically, how would architecturally exposed structural steel work for architects? Sorry, Alex, I'm just going to jump into the library. So if you're an architect, you'll probably be subscribed to Masterspec Standard or Masterspec Basic. Masterspec Standard is used by commercial architects. And under that, if you go to CBI 3, which is structure, there is a architecturally exposed structural steel section. So if you're an architect who is specifying architecturally exposed structural steel, then this is the section that you go to specify that part of the project. I hope that answers the question. Sorry, Alex.
Unfortunately, it does not provide the SCNZ one, but if they're working collaboratively, I'm having problems with my words today. I think it's a Billy T. James day. You could exchange the SCNZ one with the architect if they're using Masterspec, or provide them with a Word version or something like that to fill in, which would allow them, or they fill in the one that's available in standard and send that to you for use to then fill out the SCNZ one. They're so close to each other that it would probably work.
Thanks, Alex. Now, there is a question that has come through, is from a big picture point of view, what additional information does the SCNZ library provide as compared to our structural and civil library? So, Alex, would you like to take it?
There's reasonable number of small items. The big picture items are obviously the schedules, which are an obvious difference. The schedules came out of the SCNZ's original version specification, and those were the appendices to that version. As we can't have appendices in Masterspec, we not related appendices anyway. We developed this schedule system to take account. We didn't put them in the sections because sometimes you just don't want them, and some of them are very large and would take up a fair chunk of the section and disproportionately affect the reading of the section, if you like.
Excellent. Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head, Alex, that it covers additional information, and as I said, that it provides more in looking at how the industry is perceiving that the approach to structural steel design. Another question that has come is, any options for insulated panel connections adopted for dairy shed?
Pass. I mean, this would cover the steelwork up to that point where they are connected, and presumably, I don't, there's a number of connections for insulated panels, but from the nylon bolts to various other mechanisms. So it would depend on the systems used. If it's nylon bolts, then yeah, presumably they would connect to an angle of some sort and be bolted through. So yeah, the structural steel would cover up to that point of inserting a bolt of some other material, probably.
Because I think the other thing to consider is the scope of the standard as well, as to how far does it go in covering the enclosure or the building. Alex?
Yeah. It's there's those gray areas between any structural component and the enclosing fabric, which varies on a lot of occasions. And it's very difficult for us to cover every occasion because there's so many variables, but presumably up to the point of the connection, everything is covered, and then there may have to be a bit of customization to deal with your connection.
And as I mentioned before, guys, that SCNZ are now a valued industry partner. So they would also be keen to support the industry with questions like these. So if you're using this, you can use the work section support link here and send a question to them. And I'm sure they will do their best to answer that, to provide more information and support to the industry. So that's that takes care of it. Now, if there are no more questions, then we are at conclusion of this webinar. As before, Masterspec team is available here for your support. Oh, I see one question has come through, and it talks about fire-rated intermittent paint application at steel connections, with the fact that we need to allow for expansion of intermittent paint to work. So how does that work? Sorry, Alex, do you want me to repeat the question?
Particularly over expansion. I'm not quite sure what was intended there.
So what it says, the questions reads that fire rating intermittent paint application at steel connections, with the fact that we need to allow expansion of intermittent paint to work. So how would it work?
I'm assuming by expansion of intermittent paint, it's expansion of the steel and the intermittent paint.
Right.
And that it's if there are expansion joints, then you're going to have to treat those. You're going to have to look at those in terms of, every bit of steel has to be coated. And it might be a way in which the expansion joints are detailed, whether there's a cover over the expansion joint, which is in itself fire rated, or some other way of dealing with it. But expansion joints in intermittently painted systems have to be considered very carefully as to allow for the expansion, but maintaining the fire rating. Perennial problem. It's not easily solved.
Okay. All right, guys, thanks for your time today. We will be providing a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, and you will be receiving a link shortly. So if there are any more questions, please reach out to us at jen@masterspec.co.nz. You can also reach out to me at yash@masterspec.co.nz. As always, we can provide you with training sessions and support for your team. You can get more information from masterspec.co.nz website, and you can always get in touch with our team. Thank you, Alex, for your time today. We really hope that this library adds a valuable resource to your specification content. Thanks, everyone. Be safe, and see you all soon.